I mean, there were posts censored by the Morrison government arguing against measures like mask mandates and lockdowns. Didn't the then coalition government seek the removal of an Instagram post in April 2021 that claimed, quote, COVID-19 vaccine does not prevent COVID-19 infection or COVID-19 transmission, unquote. And that now has been proven to be correct.
Yeah, and this, of course, is the danger of giving bureaucrats the levers of power in the way we did. And in fact, this really just is another highlighting of exactly the problems that existed during COVID, where these huge swathes of power were gifted to bureaucrats who really across the country, I think, became a bit drunk on power and decided that they would be a rule unto themselves. And, you know, in South Australia, we saw that with our SA Health Department making up all sorts of extraordinary directions under those public health directions about, you know, people having masks when they walk into a building, taking them off, turning around 3 times, you know, doing nut push city limits,
Alex,
and all, you name it. They were just making it up.
And it was ludicrous. I mean, take your mask off. Put your mask on, rather. Oh, yes, I must grab it. It's on the back seat of the car where the dog piddled. It's on the floor. It's in somewhere. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, that social media placement that I was talked about, the Home Affairs Department claimed it was potentially harmful information, that basically the vaccine doesn't stop transmission, which is correct. Harmful information, but it was the truth. Now, in April 21, a tweet claimed, quote, this is April 21, COVID-19 was released or escaped from a Wuhan laboratory in China, and it was funded by the US government. Now, get rid of that, get rid of it off. I mean, the Wuhan Institute was involved in what's called gain-of-function research, which alters an organism, and I dealt with this over and over again, or a disease in a way that makes it more deadly, more transmissible, capable of causing more harm in human beings. Anthony Fauci, the US government's top infectious disease expert, through his agency, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, made a grant. This is Fauci. Trump went after Fauci, $600,000 to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So Fauci leaves his post. Alex, no sanctions.
No, and look, I mean, this is, as we've said, this is part of the problem. I mean, if you go back through history and work out what was current at one point and truthful at one point, it may be quite wrong later down the track. And this really highlights the danger with giving governments such enormous control over the narrative like this. And of course, now we're seeing this new bill from Labor, this new, well, I call it the Ministry of Truth bill, but it's the Combating Misinformation Communications bill. And really what this is seeking to do is legislate exactly that process that was being seen from the Department of Home Affairs, but effectively brick it in so that government departments can effectively operate under an ACMA code of conduct and in turn decide what's true and what's not. Now, I don't want government departments telling me what's true and what's not, and I don't want to be censored as a result of that. These are really, really dystopian, policies that are being brought forward now, and I don't want to see this sort of stuff bricked in. We've seen what it's done. We've seen how often they get it right, and we've seen the dangers associated with censorship of this nature.
Didn't the federal government pay World Services Australia, which is an arm of the London-based global communication firm M&C Saatchi, more than $1 million to monitor COVID-19 posts?
That's right. And it actually gets worse, this story. I mean, over that period, over a 3-year period, they were paying that very same group, I think almost in the sum of $28 million for other services as well, which we haven't really delved into. But certainly in that period, $1 million of Australian taxpayers' money was going to what is the Australian arm of a large multinational PR company, really, for the purposes of locating and finding posts online and then allowing those posts to be highlighted to another foreign company for the purposes of censorship. So, you've really got the Australian arm of this being a very small piece of a larger puzzle from international businesses censoring Australians' freedom of speech on social media. So we haven't dealt with this kind of thing before.
But Alex, how are we ever going to get to the truth? Because the coalition federal government intervened seeking the removal of social media posts. When the Albanese government came into power, they did the same thing. They were all singing off the same song sheet. How the hell will we ever get to the truth while that's the case?
Well, look, I mean, I think, the Department of Home Affairs was doing this at the time, and that is true to say that it happened under both governments over that period. I mean, COVID crossed over there a bit. Look, once again, this is the job of people like me, is to get to the bottom of these things and do that for whatever mechanisms this place and the freedom of information legislation allows us to hunt that information and try to show people what's going on. That's really where the power of this process exists. So, it's an age-old thing, but transparency is the greatest disinfectant to these sort of procedures. And I would like to think that hopefully, having seen how this can actually play out, that'll give us extra ammunition to fight against this Ministry of Truth, ACMA, whatever you want to call it, combating misinformation bill that's on the horizon now, because we've seen now in real world terms how it will operate and how it can be misused.